There is an immense amount of power associated with DNA, and the database is currently being used to store genetic information on the national and universal scale. CODIS, NDIS, and Interpol's DNA databases are currently home to millions of DNA profiles donated by federal, state, local participating forensic laboratories, and over 80 participating countries. The purpose of DNA databases are to compare, target, or question DNA to a vast DNA record. If a match is found, the agency where the question sample originated from will be able to establish contact with the agency associated with the DNA database profile. Many ethical issues arise when discussing the establishment of such a vast DNA database, such as privacy and bias, among other things. We will weigh the pros and cons of national and universal DNA databases. Starting with the pros. Firstly, these databases facilitate sharing of information between organizations, states, and countries. In 2015, there were already more than 60 different countries that were operating and maintaining at least one genetic database. Sharing of information between groups involved in an investigation is as important now as it ever has been, and should be made as simple as possible. With the widespread adoption of universal DNA databases, international law enforcement agencies will be able to share more information with each other to pursue suspects that, in the past, may have slipped through the cracks. Next, a universal DNA database might actually improve and reduce the potential for bias in identification. A properly constructed universal DNA database would pose only a minimal invasion of privacy. In return, it would decrease crime, reverse and prevent false conviction, and make investigations more effective and efficient. Additionally, CODIS markers cannot reveal meaningful private information about an individual's ethnicity or race. There is no nominal data attached to these profiles. They are submitted and stored via alphanumeric code. Lastly, DNA databases can help in exonerating the innocent. A universal DNA database can reverse and prevent not only false convictions, but the harms associated to privacy, freedom, and dignity caused by these false convictions. As of April 2017, a federal DNA database has assisted in more than 350,000 investigations. DNA evidence has exonerated 350 innocents who had combined served a total of 4,787 years in prison, sometimes even on death row. The value of a DNA database is beyond measure.
Since its introduction in 1990, CODIS has grown to contain more than just the most violent criminals' DNA, despite the fact that there is no empirical evidence to support the claim that DNA databases deter crime. The DNA Analysis Backlog Elimination Act of 2000 began requiring DNA samples be collected from individuals in custody for certain federal crimes. The Justice for All Act was signed into law in 2004 and expanded the eligible offenses to include all felony offenses. The DNA Fingerprint Act of 2005 broadened collections to include arrestees and non-U.S. persons detainees federally. This includes arrestees who have not been charged and foreign persons whose guilt has not been proven. Under the final 2008 ruling of the DNA Fingerprint Act, any federal agency with the authority to arrest, hold subjects, and take fingerprints has the authority to collect a DNA sample as well, which is a somewhat vague stipulation and can include federal agencies that don't commonly participate in criminal investigations. This ruling also permits federal agencies to use reasonably necessary force in order to collect DNA samples. CODIS has been found to mirror the racial polarization of the United States criminal justice system. Racial disparities present themselves in CODIS by the larger amount of DNA profiles for minorities. After having a sample uploaded into CODIS, it remains there indefinitely. If a person is found not guilty of a crime, has had the charge reduced to a non-qualifying charge, or is never charged, they can petition for expungement of their DNA sample and profile. This is not automatic and must be requested by the individual. This is not common knowledge, and many innocent people's DNA profiles are still in CODIS. Research regarding DNA and the individual information it can reveal must be pursued. Policy concerning DNA databases should reflect the research found. Solutions to privacy concerns include stronger data protection, destruction of sample after the profile is entered into CODIS, and constricting DNA to identification purposes only. These solutions should be implemented nationwide, with each state having consistent protocols.